How I feel? Blessed. What I want?
Get back slow. I love the way she rock it. I love the way she move it, shake it on me. When she cry for him, the shawty is the winner. You can tell that shawty's no beginner. She's confident. I love the way she move it.
YouTube, what's going on? It's Gotti here. We have another Washington Commanders video, and in today's video, we're coming on here with the video where we're going to be talking about the top potential GM candidates that the Washington Commanders should be interested in. So without further ado, let's get straight into today's video. Before we do, I ask you guys, please do me a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Turn on post notifications. We're on the road to 7,000 subscribers. Please help me get there as soon as possible. Also, become a channel member if you want to and join the Gotti Gang. And last but not least, subscribe to my YouTube channel, How of Words. I took a little break because I wanted to refine what I want to do with that page, but I'm still doing the same thing. Eventually going to do the podcast, but over there we're going to be doing in real life content and, you know, DMV based content until I can get the podcast popped up. So go ahead and subscribe to that channel and subscribe here. Now with that out of the way, let's get to today's video. So obviously we know the Washington Commanders are going to clean house at the end of the season, or at least we assume. So along with getting a head coach, the most important thing that a lot of people will argue is that the GM matters most, because we're getting out of a coach-centric approach or coach-centric regime, because Ron Rivera was the guy that ran the show, and he hired Martin Mayhew and Marty Herney, so obviously they are in the GM roles, but it's not their typical general manager because he was hired by the head coach. No, we're going to do it as the GM is hired first, and then he goes and hires the head coach. That's pretty much how you should do it. So Washington is now going to be having options, because there are some guys out there per the 33rd team. We're going to read an article and talk about some of these guys and a little bit background information on these guys as we're going to learn together about some of these potential GM candidates that are up and coming this season, or this off season. So let's go ahead and get to it. The first person that they talk about is Adam Peters. He's the assistant GM for the 49ers. And it goes to say this: when John Lynch was hired as the San Francisco 49ers general manager in 2017, one of the first things he did was steal the highly regarded Peters away from the Denver Broncos. Peters spent 7 years with the Broncos as an area scout and a national scout, their assistant director of college scouting, and finally their director of college scouting. The year before Lynch, Peters, and Coach Kyle Shanahan arrived, 49ers were 2-14 in the past 4 years. They've made it to the NFC Championship game 3 times and Super Bowl appearance once. Peters interviewed for the Giants GM job last year that went to Joe Schoen. He also interviewed for the Tennessee Titans job this year, but declined an interview with the Arizona Cardinals GM opening. He quoted this. He says, "He seems to be very comfortable where he is," said Mike Tannenbaum, a former NFL executive and current analyst for the 33rd team. But if he wants to be a GM somewhere else, he certainly will have some opportunities. That's on Adam Peters. Now, I think that's a guy that is going to be one of the most intriguing guys to go after, because you see the success and the roster building that they have in San Francisco. I mean, we watched the 49ers and just be so blown away at how good overall their players are at pretty much every position, from quarterback to running back to the receivers to the offensive line to the linebacking core to the secondary. They have talent everywhere, and they're a constant NFC favorite and Super Bowl contending team each and every year, and that has a lot due to obviously John Lynch and his crew, so he's a part of that. So that's somebody that I would be interested in bringing here, because I mean, look at the success. For me personally, more so than anything else that I'm going to look at, is the success that you're having at your current stop. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, what you personally do matters a lot, because I mean, you're in control of this thing, but if I know you're having success at your last stop, you can then go to GM here and then bring some guys that's also over there under you, put them in positions that you were probably in. So if he's the assistant GM, he probably becomes general manager here. He could probably bring one of the guys from San Francisco with him, and he's going to be their assistant GM here, then so on and so forth. And I just feel like that's a recipe for success, because you're not only going to be able to finally run your own show, but you've been under John Lynch so long that you kind of pick up on his tendencies, and his tendencies are very good to pick up on, because he has been amazing building his roster. So I would like to see him potentially be here. Next guy, Chicago Bears, Ian Cunningham, assistant GM. Cunningham is one of the 2 personnel players on the list. Andy Whitty is the other, who learned at the Ozzie Newsome School of Scouting, aka the Baltimore Ravens. Guys who learned and trained under Ozzie it was like getting a law degree from Harvard, said Brian Baldinger at NFL Network Insider. He was hired. He was a hard guy, but gave them the leeway to show what they could do. Ozzie and the guys that trained under him, they're not like many other guys. Even in the Ravens' heyday, rather, if you went to practice, Ozzie Sheldon was on the field. He'd be in the shed with the lawnmowers watching practice. He felt it wasn't his job just to be in the spotlight. He trained his scouts to work on their weaknesses, work on their blind spots. Anybody who trained under Ozzie, you have to take them seriously. As a coach, as a candidate, when there is a job opening, it's like coaching under Andy Reid. And he's basically saying, under Andy Reid, you're prone to get a head coaching gig. You know what I'm saying? Because he has a track record of putting guys in positions to get head coaching jobs, same with Ozzie Newsome, with Eric DeCosta in Baltimore. So the Cunningham is 38, learned the trade under Newsome, joining the Ravens in 2008 as a personnel assistant, and served as an area scout for the team from 2013 to 2016. That's where I grew up, he said. That's where I cut my teeth. The Philadelphia Eagles hired him in 2017 to be their director of college scouting. He was promoted to assistant director of player personnel in 2019 and director of player personnel in 2021. He was hired by the Chicago Bears last year as their assistant general manager under Ryan Poles. Fox Sports' Jay Glazer reported in January that Cunningham was offered the Arizona Cardinals GM job that went to Monty Ossenfort, but turned it down. The Ravens had a run of 6 consecutive playoff appearances in the 7 years Cunningham was with the organization, including the Super Bowl title in 2012. The Eagles were in the playoffs for the 4 out of 5 years Cunningham was with them, and won the Super Bowl in 2017. So if I haven't already said this, I should have said at the top of the video. It's going to be a long video because we're going to read these guys' profiles. So if this isn't what you want to hear, or if this is not what you want to, listen to, and just me rambling pretty much, I'll catch you in the next video. Or you can just skip to the end of who you think, who I think should pretty much be the front runner. But we're going to learn about these guys if you don't mind, so stick around with me. Cunningham was a 2-year starting offensive lineman at the University of Virginia, where he earned a bachelor's degree in physiology. Psychologically, let's go with and a master's in education and human development. Ian is smart, thinks broadly, and has an expert in all areas of the GM needs to know. He's an expert. Tannenbaum said working for the Ravens and Eagles was great training to run your own ship. So he's a guy that currently is with the Bears. And if you look at the Bears team, yeah, I know they're bad, but look at the things that they've done over the last couple years. Trading away that first overall pick, getting them picks back, and now they're going to be picking them on overall because the Carolina Panthers stink. Now they're going to be in position to maybe get Caleb Williams, maybe give Justin Fields one more shot, and draft Marvin Harrison, or trade out of that pick again. And then you still got your own pick. They got picks upon picks upon picks. They did trade away one to get Montez Sweat, but Montez Sweat is a hell of a guy on defense. Paid him. You got Jalen Johnson. Like, their roster is coming together. In my opinion, quarterback is just holding them back. So their roster and the way he maneuvers in the draft more so than anything else. And I know he's not directly the only guy doing it, but he's a part of the team. But the way he maneuvers in the draft is very interesting. Because again, if we get our GM here in, like, let's say January or early February, and we're at 5, he could potentially move that pick around and maybe move back, get some picks, and still get a quality guy. You know what I'm saying? So he's interesting. The next guy you got Ed Dodds, assistant GM for the Colts. Dodds has 2 things working against him. He's employed by an organization that has made just 2 playoff appearances in the last 8 years and worked for a high-profile boss, Indianapolis Colts GM Chris Ballard, making it hard for those under him to get any visibility or attention. That said, Dobbs is widely respected around the league and has interviewed for 6 GM jobs in the past 3 years, including with the Bears, the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2022. He did not interview for either other GM openings this year, Tennessee and Arizona, probably because of the stench from the Colts' 4-12 and 1 record. Dodge has been with the Colts since 2017, spending only 1 year as the team's vice president of player personnel before being promoted to assistant general manager. He directs pro and college scouting departments and remade the Colts' entire player evaluation process, implicating former Green Bay Packers GM Ron Wolf. 1 to 9 grading skills. Before joining the Colts, Dodge spent nearly a decade with the Seattle Seahawks as a pro and college scout and senior personnel executive. He's done a very good job of writing players up and looking for the right things by position, said a personnel executive with another AFC team. Window of opportunity tend to open and close, Tannenbaum said. If the Colts can start winning some games again, Dodge certainly will have some opportunities. So his is a little bit sticky. He doesn't really have the best track record as far as, winning or whatever, because he's under the Colts, and Chris Ballard is a GM that is not wildly looked at positively in the NFL anymore. At first he was, but now he's not. So considering the fact that he's coming from a losing organization as of late, the Colts are having a solid season, but recently, consistently, they have not had the success that they wanted. So it may be hard for him to get a job competing with guys that's coming from San Francisco, coming from Chicago, coming from Kansas City, who we're about to read about next. Mike Borgonzi is the Kansas City assistant GM, and obviously everybody's gonna go crazy about Kansas City because of the success that they've had, and obviously Patrick Mahomes. So let's read. Borgonzi has been with the Kansas City Chiefs for 14 years. The last two in his current position as GM. Brett Veach, tops personnel lieutenant. He's also has served as the Chiefs Director of Player of Football Operations 2018 to 2020, Director of Player Personnel 2015-2017, Director of Pro Scout in 2013-14, and Pro Personnel Scout 2011 to 2012, and Manager of Football Operations in 2010. Veach and Reed have received the lion's share of their credit for the Chiefs' success over the 14 GM openings during the 3 years. Borzi interviewed for just one of them. The Carolina Panthers in 2021, that job went to Scott Fitter. But Borgonzi, an Ivy League fullback at Brown, is starting to get noticed. A winning organization it's easy to say it's Andy Reid or Mahomes, Tannenbaum said, but they've shown a lot of real belief in how they do things. Their front office is really smart, really talented. There are a lot of depth there. They've made hard decisions, most notably letting Tyreek Hill go, and they still won a championship. They rebuilt their offensive line, their secondary. It's incredible, young, but they won a Super Bowl with it, and it's going to keep getting better. So that's on the Kansas City Chiefs. GM, assistant GM, his name is Mike Borgonzi. Hopefully I'm saying that right. He obviously is going to be a hot commodity because he's coming from Kansas City. That doesn't mean him necessarily the best, but he has He's coming from a track record that is very, very good. And me personally, that's where I'm looking at, because it's going to be hard to directly evaluate your personal performance and how much impact you have on the success, because you're not directly running the ship. You are an assistant, but just not you calling the final shots. So that's why I'm like, you look at their track records as far as how their teams have performed over the years, the organization that they've been a part of, how they perform over the years, because that's going to tell me a lot about what I could potentially get myself into. So yeah, it's going to be like, oh, we're going to be looking at Kansas City because they're one of the best teams in football, but it's like, that's what you have to look at, is how these teams have performed. You can't really directly talk about his success, because again, he's an assistant. He's not the guy that has the final say. So I think Kansas City's a guy that's going to be at the top of the board, especially if they go out on top again this year and win a Super Bowl. He's definitely going to be a guy that is at the top. You go over down to the next guy, JoJo Wooden. And again, reminder, this is going to be a pretty long video because I'm going to be talking about these guys and I'm going in depth about what we're talking about here. So if you're just staring at my face and you kind of getting bored, bear with me. This is the kind of video that's going to be today. JoJo Wooden, Director of Player Personnel, Chargers. Wooden has been with the Los Angeles Chargers since 2013. He interviewed for the Bears GM job in 2022 and the Washington Commanders GM opening in 2021. Okay. Wooden oversees the pro and college scouting development for the Chargers GM Tony Telesco. Before joining the Chargers, the former Syracuse linebacker spent 15 years with the New York Jets and the last 6 as their assistant director of player personnel. Quote, JoJo definitely deserves to be a GM, said Tannenbaum, who was Wooden's boss when he was the Jets GM. He's smart. He's a natural evaluator. He gets along well with all sorts of different people. He's comfortable talking to ownership. He's comfortable talking to ownership as he talks to an area scout. So he's able to talk exactly how he would talk to the owners, to the area scout who's at the bottom of the pole. So that's good. The only thing JoJo doesn't do a good job at is self-promotion. He doesn't like bring any attention to himself. So, okay, JoJo. That's interesting that he interested for the Washington Commanders GM opening, and obviously Ron Rivera being Ronald, he brought in his own guys, right? He brought in Marty and Martin. So we missed out on JoJo, but JoJo, we can get JoJo this time. You look at the Chargers roster. Another case in point of the 49ers. Now, they're not as lucky as the 49ers, or I should say as well coached, because they have one of arguably the best rosters in football, the Chargers. But unlike the 49ers, who also has one of the best rosters in football, they're not winning. And a lot of that is due to coaching. So you can take that into consideration. Again, JoJo isn't the guy that pulls the trigger because he's not the last guy. He's not the final say. But that could be something that's working against JoJo, is that the fact that he hasn't been able to, or them as an organization has not been able to find the right coach to pair with Justin Herbert. But as far as roster building, they have been on the money. Now, if JoJo could come here and find the right coach, I would feel comfortable. But that's probably my only thing with them, is that they haven't, and he's been there since 2013, so he's been there with Anthony Lynn, now Brandon Staley, so he's been there quite some time. So that kind of concerns me. That's the only thing I have concern about, is him potentially not picking the right coach. But other than that, as far as roster building, I'm all for it. Drafting, they didn't really speak much about how he is in the draft, and Chargers in the draft, I think they're kind of stagnant, so that could be also a thing that could probably turn you off, because you don't really trade up, you don't trade back, you don't make moves on the draft, so that could also turn you off. But as far as a roster building goes, he's probably one of the best. You look at the roster on the Chargers and you'll see why. Next guy, Steelers, Andy Weidl, assistant general manager for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Again, without even saying, Pittsburgh Steelers is one that's consistent winning. Now, they haven't won a Super Bowl since for a while now. However, they still consistently, even with mediocre talent, find ways to win. Find ways to be consistent and be irrelevant. So this Weidl is another Newsome disciple. The former Villanova offensive lineman spent a decade as an area scout for Newsome and the Ravens before joining the Eagles and their assistant director of player personnel in 2016. He was the Eagles' vice president of player personnel last year when he interviewed, and he was a finalist for the Steelers GM job. The Steelers ended up staying in-house and hiring Omar Khan, who has been with the organization for more than 20 years. But Weidl, a Pittsburgh native who began his career with the Steelers accepting the assistant job under Khan, Weidl isn't looking to leave. His wife also is a Pittsburgh native. They just built a new house there. Okay, so we're wasting our time reading that for then if he doesn't want to come. What's the point? I'm not even about to read the rest of that because what's the point if he doesn't want to come, if he doesn't want to leave, you feel me? Next guy, we got another Kansas City Chiefs guy up here. I told y'all Kansas City is going to be a hot commodity because obviously the success that they've had. The next guy is Brent Tillis, VP Football Operations. Tillis is a interesting name. He's primarily the salary cap guy, but so was Eagles general manager Howie Roseman, who has won 2 of the NFL's last 6 Executives of the Year awards. Roseman's success is changing how supposed non-football personnel people are viewed. Brent writes up scouting reports and watches tapes, says a league source who knows Tilts. He's very smart and understands everything you need to understand as a GM, from contracts to negotiation, trades to what you should look for in the people you hire under you. Tilts, like Borgonzi, interviewed for the Panthers GM job last year. He is believed to have been the team's second choice after Fitter. Tilts, has been credited with the construction of the Patrick Mahomes 10-year, $450 million contract and All-Pro guard Joe Thuney free agent contract. He's also had a role in facilitating the Hill trade as far as minimizing the cap's implications of the trade and the acquisition of 5 draft picks they got from Miami. So that is pretty much it as far as the guys that are on the radar of GMs. Told y'all it's going to be a long video, pretty much long read of going a little bit in depth. So hopefully y'all stuck around now. Let's get to business. And I'm going to need y'all to comment down below who y'all, out of everybody we read about, and I'll link the article for you to read it yourself, who y'all think we should go after. Here's my list, right? My list, I think number 3 or number 1, I'm going to start with number 1, the best. I think I would go after the 49ers guy. Because you look at the success the 49ers guy has had, Adam Peters, they have built that roster so good, man. So good. They always find a late round gems, right? Whether it's Brock Purdy or it's Talanoa Hufanga. Like, they're always finding talent, right? So I would love that. They built the roster right. They consistently win. They got the right coach in there and Kyle Shanahan. Like, that's all 3 phases that I'm concerned about, right? Draft, he's good at. Roster construction, he's good at. Coaching, picking a coach, they're good at. So give me Adam Peters number 1. Number 2, I got the Kansas City guy. The first Kansas City guy. Let me go ahead and get his name correctly. Mike Borgonzi. Similar to what the 49ers are. Recent success. Now, the Chiefs roster overall isn't directly that good because they're lacking at wide receiver this season, but that isn't taking away the success that they had last year and the years before that with Tyreek Hill at the helm, right? So, I like the Chiefs guy for obvious reasons. They're consistently winning in the AFC. They're consistently making AFC Championship appearances. They're consistently making Super Bowl appearances and winning. Obviously, that's due to a lot of Patrick Mahomes. But look at the guys behind the scenes that drafted Patrick Mahomes, that put this roster in positions to be successful year in and year out. So I would like him at number 2. And then number 3, give me JoJo from the Chargers. JoJo Wooden. Again, he's already interviewed for Washington's vacant GM job in 2021, so maybe he gets it this go-round. And JoJo, similar to the 49ers, they have built that Chargers team so successfully and right. The difference is with them is they haven't been able to find the coach. and they're pretty much stagnant as an organization. Now, I don't know if JoJo necessarily is a stagnant guy, but they're pretty much stagnant when it comes to the draft. They don't move, they don't trade up, they don't trade back, so that could be something that could turn you off. But if we're talking as far as just roster building per se, JoJo could be your guy. So those are my top 3. What says you out there? Number 1 though for me is gonna be Adam Peters, because you're getting the best of 3 worlds. You're getting the guy that moves around in the draft. You're getting the guy that builds the great roster, and you're getting the guy that has great job. Has a great coach and Kyle Shanahan. So he's seeing greatness as coaching. So he's gonna come here and potentially pick the right guy for us, right? Pick the right guy for us. So let me know what y'all think. Long video, I know. Hopefully y'all stuck around and watched it through and listened to it thoroughly. Let me know who you guys would pick as the GM to fill this vacancy next season. Let me know what you guys think. As always, me and boy Juan Gotti. Like, comment, subscribe. Hail to the Washington Commanders. We're on the road to 7,000 subscribers, so please help me get there as soon as possible. It would be greatly appreciated. Love each and every one of you all. Y'all have a blessed one. Peace.